So we are taken from fantastic tale to fantastic tale. And I want to spend a moment to talk about a second one, Odysseus' encounter with the Cyclops. This story foregrounds another aspect of the Odyssey. The Odyssey not as a tale of fantastic adventures, but the Odyssey as a travel account. And if we read the Odyssey as travel literature, we want to mine it for cultural information about how the Greeks of the Homeric world interacted with foreign cultures. And this is very much what happens in the story of the Cyclops. Odysseus tells us in advance what these strange one-eyed giants are. And he describes them with two words, lawless savages. And he goes on to say, lawless savages who leave everything up to the gods. These people neither plow nor plant, but everything grows for them unsown. Wheat, barley, and vines that bear clusters of grapes, watered by the rain of Zeus. They have no assemblies or laws, but live in high mountain caves, ruling their own children and wives, ignoring each other. And he goes on, they pasture no flocks, they don't know how to build sailboats, etc., etc. This is how he introduces us to these one-eyed giants. But then he tells the story of the actual encounter. He describes how he and his companions enter the shore and they go and explore. There's always this element of curiosity that drives Odysseus forward. They climb up the mountains, they explore the caves, and they see signs of settlement. They enter the cave, but they don't find anyone there. And so they make themselves at home. They eat cheese and drink wine. Odysseus' companions get nervous. They want to leave. They don't know who owns this cave. But Odysseus urges them to stay because he wants to see whether he can extract hospitality gifts that are part of the rules of hospitality. And so they wait, and indeed, before long, the owner of the cave, Polyphemus, returns. He's a giant, a one-eyed giant, a Cyclops, and he is not too happy. He finds that someone has made themselves at home in his cave, and he gets angry and starts to kill them. So Odysseus and his companions are in dire straits, and they don't know what to do. And here Odysseus' cunning once again makes an appearance. He gets the giants drunk on wine, and when he sleeps, Odysseus will take a pole, put it into glowing red embers, and he will take out the eye, blinding Polyphemus. They have blinded the enemy, but they have not yet escaped, because Polyphemus, enraged, is guarding the entrance of the cave, and no one can escape. But before long, Polyphemus needs to graze his sheep, and so he lets them out one by one, checking their backs, making sure that none of these strangers is sitting on the backs of these sheep. And so Odysseus, in his cunning, has bound them to the underside of these sheep, and they escape. Odysseus, of course, can't bind himself, but he's holding on to the underside of the biggest ram. It's also the favorite ram of Polyphemus. And now we have a scene of tension, because Polyphemus, who knows his ram, notices that he behaves in an unusual way. He's hanging back when usually he's one of the first to leave the cave. And he speaks to the ram, asking him what is happening. And we think that in any moment now, he will discover Odysseus. But then he lets it go, and Odysseus escapes. And now Polyphemus is enraged, and he is calling the other Cyclops for help. And here the third part of Odysseus' trick comes into view, because he has told Polyphemus that his Odysseus' name is Nobody. And now when the other Cyclops ask who has escaped, Polyphemus will answer, nobody, and there will be no hunt for the escaped stranger. This is the suspenseful tale of Odysseus and the Cyclops and his narrow escape. But this is actually not the aspect of the episode I want to focus on. Because Odysseus has told us beforehand what kind of people these Cyclops are. He had described them as lawless savages who have no pastures, who herd no sheep, who live isolated from each other and have no society and companionship. None of this is actually true. According to his own tale, prejudiced as it might be, we gather that there's cheese, we gather that there are sheep. Polyphemus tends his flock with surprising intimacy and care. And we have seen the other Cyclops trying to help Polyphemus after Odysseus escapes. So there are hints in the text, if you read it against the grain, that in fact the life of these Cyclops is not as primitive and pitiful as Odysseus describes them. This is not untypical. A word comes to mind when describing this encounter of Greek culture with a foreign culture. The word is a well-known one to us, barbarian. It's a term Greeks used to describe non-Greek cultures. And it originally speaks to language. This is how foreign languages sound to Greek ears. Bar, 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 bar. This is what the word means, non-Greek speakers, those who sound like when they're speaking, all they're saying is bar, 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 bar. But of course it becomes a word that speaks to a kind of cultural arrogance, the way in which Greek culture viewed other culture, or certain Greeks view non-Greek cultures, like Odysseus here. And so Polyphemus is very much a barbarian, not just in the way he speaks, but in a kind of cultural inferiority. And this is maybe a good moment to remember that it is indeed Odysseus who is telling this tale, not Homer. And we should also remember the scene in which this telling occurs, at the court of the Phaeacians, where Odysseus has been washed ashore naked, without any possessions, without any friends, entirely dependent on his hosts. And he will also depend on them to outfit him with a ship so he can sail home. So there is a lot at stake for Odysseus in this tale and in how he tells it. And so we may be able to forgive him for putting a self-aggrandizing or self-serving spin on this story. Odysseus may be what we now call an unreliable narrator, or at least a prejudiced one. This, too, is something that is made possible by this interesting technique through which Homer tells this part of the Odyssey through the mouth of Odysseus, allowing us to take a step back and to take Odysseus' tale with a grain of salt.